Everyone thought the wolves had attacked little Bailey. But what would they think if it was his mother who did the unthinkable? In an icy village, a boy was busy playing when he discovered a wolf nearby. The mother, named Medora, was inside the house and she was oblivious to the event. When she went out, she discovered the child was nowhere to be found. She wrote a letter to Mr. Russell Core seeking help in avenging her son. And thus, the man went to her aid. He arrived somewhere north and immediately ventured to the woman's village despite the dark and snow. Ice and snow could be seen for miles, making the place a lot chillier. Soon, he arrived at the remote village, deeply isolated from civilization. Medora greeted him and welcomed him inside. She began the conversation, grateful the man had come to help her find the wolf that took her son. Russell, however, did not promise he would punish the wolf. Nevertheless, he promised to be of help. They further discussed the plan, considering every possible threat and possibility. As their conversation progressed, the woman's demeanor was of total desperation, worrying Russell. But she continued and led the man to where the past victims were taken. As they hiked, they conversed. The woman showed him the various locations where the attacks happened, with one being the daughter of Medora's family friend. Russell asked whether he could converse with the father, but she declined. The woman was clear of her intent on hunting down the ones that took her child, which Russell discouraged. Brokenhearted, Medora left. Russell caught up to her, confirming the woman at least had a happy memory in this deserted Iceland. But she was indifferent, not pleased with the conversation. That evening after dinner, Russell could not take the silent treatment he was receiving. To break the ice, he told her the story of why his wolf hunting career had ended. His daughter meant the world to him, but they were not in touch anymore and his wife already left him. Concerned, Medora voiced how she could not pay the man anything, but Russell reassured her that everything was fine. After some time, Medora excused herself, leaving the man in silence once more. As Russell slept, he heard whispers from afar. Troubled, he followed the noises out of curiosity. He discovered Medora mumbling to herself, which greatly concerned Russell, but he let her be and went back to bed and forced himself to sleep. Before this, however, he was startled when Medora walked around with a mask on. She went and lay beside him, still in a daze, with tears in her eyes. She was acting out of character, now raising Russell's concerns to the highest. Outside, however, an unknown man waited in the cold night. Far away, a man aboard a tanker readied himself for the unexpected. When the car in front of them strayed, he immediately engaged in battle mode. Once all calmed down, a scout scanned for any threat and even took a selfie as a memento. Vernon, the soldier, could only look at his goofy comrade. Back in civilization, Vernon ventured into the area and was led to a seemingly abandoned house. Inside, a woman was at the mercy of another soldier. Vernon intervened, helped her out, and let her do anything she pleased with the bad man. As Vernon leisurely walked away, he was suddenly attacked. He guided himself down and was desperately applying pressure to not worsen his wound. But he was slipping away, drifting to his memory of his son. A moment later, he was immediately escorted back to safety and was deported from service. Back home, Medora readied the things for the expedition, encouraging Russell to do the job. He could not do anything but abide by her request, and so he left the place. As he walked, an elderly warned him about the journey. But even so, this was his only way of helping Medora. So Russell ventured into the woods aimlessly, walking for what seemed like miles. He stopped for a drink and continued. Soon, he discovered something odd, so he went up a hill to get a better view of the place. Mimicking a wolf, he howled mightily and was reciprocated from afar. Pinpointing the location, he went on his expedition. The paw prints were an indication he was getting near them. From a distance, he saw the wolves feasting on something unlikely, raising awareness to Russell. As he was about to escape, he slipped off the snowy cliff and his tumbling alerted the canine. They were now in attack mode, so Russell had to quicken his pace to defend himself. But as he readied to aim, the wolves were now hesitating in their attack. Moments later, they backed off, lifting Russell's worries. Russell left the place immediately, now on his way to the village. Arriving, he warmed himself, still surprised by the events. He searched for Medora, but could not find her everywhere. As he searched, he then noticed the once locked door was now opened. He went in to check and discovered something horrendous. He immediately went out and called for help, saying what had happened to the little boy downstairs. Everyone went in to check, leaving Russell with the elderly, who had known everything from the start. The other villagers offered prayers for the deceased, and with Medora missing, they were off to report the incident to the authorities. When they arrived, the cops immediately interrogated Russell about the happenings. From the evidence, Medora was the prime suspect in the crime. Russell was certain she planned this all but did not know the reason. With the father now informed, the police wanted Russell to come with them. The policeman led him to the nearest inn, asking for him to stay for interrogation. With the villagers' unreliable remarks, he was the best option to get statements from. They wanted to know why he thought Medora could do such an act. But to better convey Russell's statement, he was offered to stay and relax for the night. Some time ago, Bailey, the poor boy, was by the stream with his father. They were hunting, and lucky to have hunted a deer. They embarked on a heart-touching father-son conversation, something Vernon could only reminisce. He was now on his way home, greeted by his best friend Cheon. He met up with Russell at the local morgue. Vernon immediately questioned him about the events, to which Russell was deeply saddened. The police arrived, saying they now had leads on Medora and that everything would be shed to light. Russell was there as the last witness, and a great help so far. but Vernon was more focused on seeing his son, regretful of what had happened. After the visit, Vernon was still preoccupied as all started to leave, but Vernon stopped Russell and shook his hand before he left. As the two remaining policemen delivered the details of the search, Vernon went on a rampage and hurt the two. He continued to collect the data and proceeded with his attack, with the shots echoing in the night. Donald, the policeman, heard the noise but dismissed these thoughts and continued. Vernon then started digging, whereas Cheon was building something. It turned out they started the burial for Bailey, placed markings on him, and end everything there. Back at the village, Cheon talked about a place Vernon should go to, with him being deeply concerned. After their talk, Vernon bid farewell and went to his place. In there, he reviewed the files containing his son's case, and in it was his wife's information as well. After everything was accounted for, he was now ready to leave. But he visited the elderly woman before he left. She then started to talk, saying she could not stop Medora from her treacheries. She then began to tell the hunting past of their village with the wolves. But this was not what Vernon had come for. Meanwhile, Russell was cozy in bed and was trying to get a hold of his daughter. However, she was not reachable. Russell was sick due to stress and was now imagining Medora was with him, warning him of the skies. Russell proceeded in filling out the report form, but he then realized something strange. He immediately informed the police of the elderly woman he encountered. But the other line ended the call, so he had to take matters into his hands. Vernon was on his way somewhere when the police discovered his tracks. The police also discovered the disappearance of Bailey's body. They were now certain these were Vernon's doing. Meanwhile, Russell was on his way to the village. However, when he entered the elderly woman's house, he discovered she too met her end. The police arrived, to Russell's relief, but he was confused as to why they were all there. Donald, the head of the operation, went to the house of Vernon's friend. They talked about the happenings, but Cheon had his mouth shut. He had a deep hatred for the cops, not wanting to help them out. Donald tried to intimidate him, but he would not budge, even daring the cops to move. Feeling hopeless, Donald left the place. Now, Russell had arrived at the place where all had gathered. As they were planning to leave, Cheon started his attack. Everyone fled, immediately seeking shelter. It was a riot as the fight went on. Some cops fought back, while others were at the mercy of the enemy. Even Russell had to hide under a car to save himself. When Donald saw an opening, he instructed the junior to cover for him. He then went to the house and tried to break in. The others attacked, but they were overpowered by the forces of the enemy. Seeing the others' helplessness, Russell went in to help just in time as Donald broke into the house. When Cheon heard noises from within, he knew it was already a checkmate. With the final blow, Cheon met his end. Everyone was immediately rushed for medical assistance. Russell could only look at the event, feeling guilty and remorseful. Seeing his worried wife, Donald hugged her so tight, reassuring the both of them. Meanwhile, Vernon arrived at another local inn. With the presence of the innkeeper, he immediately inquired whether his wife arrived at the place. She then led him to the room she booked some nights ago, and he discovered something was off. He went to the house of the man Medora was last seen with by the innkeeper. Meeting the man, the other welcomed him for dinner. On the other hand, Russell was now staying at Donald's place. They engaged in a casual conversation, some on the line of parenting. But as they continued to share, Russell could not help but felt a bit emotional, missing his daughter so much. Vernon and the old man, however, talked about the couple's situation. The man knew a lot about their problems, reassuring him he was there to help anyone in need. They continued and the man reminisced the past, remembering Vernon as a child. As the conversation progressed, the old man talked about the mask Medora left behind, encouraging Vernon to choose one for himself. But as he wore one, his demeanor drastically changed and he attacked the elderly. The attack was noticed by the innkeeper, and she was now on high alert. When Vernon tried to escape, the innkeeper surprised him with her attacks. He could only flee the place in a hurry as the lady let out her wrath. From afar, another friend of Vernon was watching the news when he discovered Cheon had done something horrifying. Soon, Vernon arrived at his door, seeking shelter and relief. A friend immediately went to his assistance, relaying the news of the events. Back at Donald's place, the two conversed about the events and were sure Vernon had to be found as soon as possible. They proceeded to converse about Medora and examined how peculiar her behaviors were. All they could do was speculate happening between the couple. When Donald talked about vacation, Russell then remembered something important. They planned on how to get to the place where Russell believed they would find Medora. At the same time, Vernon remembered the same place he and Medora went to before. It was a cave with a spring inside, the place they called their paradise. Vernon woke up, enlightened about where she could be. He also discovered his friend had snitched behind his back, informing the police of his whereabouts. To pay for the friend's kind services, Vernon ended his suffering. Meanwhile, Donald and Russell were now on their way to the hideout, but because of the unprecedented events, they had no choice but to go on the search by themselves. They flew over the icy mountains in search of the couple's missing paradise. When Russell noticed the similarities in the place, he asked for the plane to land. Going into the unknown, they readied themselves for the unexpected. As they ventured the snowy path, they noticed paw prints, signaling a wolf pack was near. Russell noticed something from afar as well, and suddenly an arrow rained, hitting Donald. Russell had no choice but to save himself and leave. As Russell searched for the hidden paradise, he finally found Medora and warned her of the danger. But it was too late, for Vernon had arrived and took the upper hand. Russell thought it was the end for the both of them, but the two had other plans. Sometime later, the couple was in a hurry to leave the place, but Vernon did not forget to alleviate the pain Russell was feeling. Russell warned them about the cops, but Vernon seemingly did not care. Medora hugged the man one last time and bid farewell. To save himself, Russell went out to seek help despite the pain. However, seeing the hungry wolves near him, he was certain this was his end. Fortunately, he was rescued just in time and was saved. Meanwhile, the couple went out to seek their son's grave, and that was the last time they were seen. Russell woke up now lying on a hospital bed. He was alive, and with him was his daughter. With a faint smile on his face, he was happy she was with him now.